Welcome to the Dirt Road Tourist, a podcast about overlanding where we focus on the places you find on the way to camp. I'm Ken, and we aren't overlanding to find the most difficult off-road trails. We're seeking out the delicious food, the people, the culture, and sometimes the oddities, the America that you can only find when you leave the interstates behind and get out into the country. We'll talk about gear, camping tips to make your life out here more comfortable, interesting places to see, and vehicles that get you out to the good stuff. Join Susan and I to hear what we discover next on this episode of the Dirt Road Tourist. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Dirt Road Tourist. Thanks for joining me this week. We just got back from a trip. We decided we wanted a little campfire therapy, and a lot of places in western North Carolina that we like to go to, they're still digging out from under the mud and the muck, so we decided to stay out from underfoot of those folks and strike out a little bit further east. This was just going to be a quick out and back and overnight. So we headed towards Pilot Mountain or Mount Pilot, depending on who you talk to. Mount Airy is right near there, and I wanted to go see that. Susan's been there before, but I had not. So I wanted to see the town that inspired Mayberry and the Andy Griffith show. It's a very Andy Griffith themed town. I'll say that for it. So we decided to head up, and we packed up everything in the truck and headed up. Got up to Mount Airy, and oh boy, it was a zoo up there. Everybody's out there trying to catch some of the leaves changing, and the weather was gorgeous this weekend. So the crowds had turned out in force. This being one of the touristy areas that's open right now. So I guess what's left is experiencing some really heavy traffic. So we got there, checked out the downtown area really quick, and went through downtown. We were looking for somewhere to have lunch because it was about lunchtime when we got there, and checked out this little place called Wally's Service. And I'm gonna try to get some pictures of some of this stuff on the website there for the show because it's pretty cool. A lot of Andy Griffith themed stuff in this little shop here. It's a service station that's been turned into a kind of a tourist trap store. There they have trinkets and souvenirs, but they also have a couple of the Andy Griffith era police cars. These are the older police cars that are done with a little red dome light on top, and they offer tours. You can actually take a tour of Mayberry in the back of a an Andy Griffith police car. So if you ever had a fantasy of being the town drunk there, riding around in the back of the police car, they can do that for you. So we continued on from there, and like I said, this town was kind of mobbed this weekend, being one of the open things around there. So a lot of the restaurants were pretty packed, and we had Fisher in the truck, of course. So we ended up settling on a place called Speedy Chef for lunch, and that was a pretty good burger. They had the crinkle cut fries, which always endears me to a place because I love those. And of course, they had cheer wine on the fountain, so we had the full North Carolina classic experience for the burger. And they did a great job with everything. Really thoroughly enjoyed lunch, and I'll try to throw some pictures up there too. And from there, we were originally going to go to the Pilot Mountain State Park and try to do a little bit of hiking, but we had some friends that live in the area, some old friends that were going to come out and, kind of hang with us and camp and have a little chat around the campfire and spend some time there. So we decided to just go ahead and head on down to our campground for the night. And we had booked a dispersed camping spot at this place called Jomioki Campground. It's a privately owned campground in the area because there isn't a whole lot of Forest Service roads or any kind of disperse that you can do. So it's really campgrounds that you're looking at. And the Pilot Mountain State Park campground was fully booked for the weekend. Surprise, surprise. That should have been our first clue. So we booked a Jumioki because they had some spots available. And we booked a dispersed spot there. And we got out here, and the signs, once we pulled in, were a little bit confusing because it has a sign that points in a direction and it says dispersed camping. and there's just this huge open field, and there were already some people set up there. It was mostly RV rigs that had pulled out into this field area, and they have a few poles there with some electrical hookups for those. But for the most part, it was just wide open grass, and apparently the dispersed camping was a little further down the gravel road from that area, but we wanted to set up. Well, we didn't know that we weren't already in the dispersed camping already, for one thing. And number two, there was a kind of a you top a rise there, and there's just a beautiful view of Pilot Mountain in the background. So we decided we want to pull in there at the very top of this rise, and we got the rig pulled in there and oriented so that we would wake up with a great view of Pilot Mountain, except we didn't, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But got a camp set up, got the tent set up and the awning and everything out, and got our fire pit set up, and our friends showed up, and so we were just kind of hanging out, talking with them for a bit before the owner. They generally make regular rounds in their side by side because they go around to the different campsites seeing if anybody needs to purchase some firewood. We had already brought ours, but there was some confusion over whether or not they had originally texted us and said no fires, presumably because they don't want burnt rings in the grass. And we texted back that we have a raised contained fire pit. And would that be okay? And so it took a little time for that to come back. And they said, yeah, that's fine. So we were setting up the fire pit, and they pulled up when the side by side. And I was asking the owner. I looked on the website before we went up there, and they have a big stage at this Jomioki campground, and they frequently host music festivals and different bands and stuff. So it's kind of a music venue for the area, and they've hosted some pretty big acts in the past. But they didn't have anything on the website that they said was booked for this weekend. But when I was going down to the bathroom, after we set up camp, I had noticed somebody was setting up some monitors on the stage. So I asked the owner, I said, "Do you guys have an act book tonight? Because it looks like somebody's setting up." And he said, "Yeah, we have a private party down there, and they have a Grateful Dead tribute band scheduled." He says, "If you want to go down there and listen in, just offer the band a few dollars like that to kind of help. It helps them out with gas money and everything." He said, "Or you can just sit up here on the hill and listen for free." And we decided not to crash the party. It was a private event anyway, so we hung out on the hill, and the band that was there was called Hallucination Engine. They're out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and they're a Grateful Dead tribute band. And let me tell you what, these guys can play. It was actually, they put on a really good show. So it was kind of a free gift with purchase there. We booked a campsite, didn't know that there was going to be any kind of music there that night, but turns out we got a free concert. So, and it was a really good band, also. So I said earlier that I was taking pains to make sure that we would get a great view of the Pilot Mountain there from the campsite and from the tent. And that didn't I had every intention of waking up, you throw down the window and, "Ah, look at this, it's beautiful. There's the Pilot Mountain," but it got down to about 36 degrees. So come morning, neither one of us were in any mood to actually unroll any of the windows. It was pretty nippy in there. We did not take our diesel heater, and probably should have. We were fine with the 20-degree bag that we have. We have a Kelty bag that we keep up in a rooftop tent for shoulder season and winter season camping. And we were fine as far as, staying warm. I slept perfectly warm that night. But the tent inside, the air was really cold this morning, and I did not want to climb out of that sleeping bag. I was in none too much of a hurry to actually wake up and get moving. So, and there was a lot of condensation, a lot of dew, because of the humidity in the air. So we probably should have taken the diesel heater, and I pulled it out after we got home and dusted it off and hooked it up to make sure that it's working properly, and did a quick test run on the diesel heater. So any of our trips coming up, we'll probably take that with us regardless of what the weather is going to look like. So, but had a really great time camping over here at Jomioki. They had it's a pretty cool campground, especially if they have any kind of musical acts going there. It was a pretty great time that we had last night. So our friends Glenn and Gretchen, they showed up too, and we kind of had a nice fire going at our fire pit. That was another thing that we purchased whenever we got back this afternoon. Is I got one of those 36-inch round mats that you can put underneath your grill or your fire pit to protect the grass underneath it. I haven't had one of those and kind of needed one. I just took 4 logs and actually laid those out side by side and put the fire pit on that, and that works great, but you're sacrificing a lot of the firewood that we had brought with us just to kind of raise up the fire pit. So one of those fireproof mats I'm hoping is going to be a really good way to keep well, I can keep it, take it, roll it up, and it'll just stay in the fire pit, and then you unroll it, lay that down, put the fire pit on that, and you're good to go. So decided I needed to pick one of those up, and looking forward, that'll be here tomorrow, so I'll be able to actually roll that up and have it in our fire pit. But the campground itself, fantastic. Had a great concert, great time hanging out with Glenn and Gretchen, let me rather say, and catching up with them. We hadn't seen them in a few years, and heard some stories about the storm that passed through. Helene didn't entirely miss Pilot Mountain, but it didn't completely wreck it like it did a lot of the parts in Western North Carolina. But they were without power for a while, and we saw a whole bunch of downed trees on the way up there. So apparently they did take a pretty good hit, but it's good to see that the area is able to bounce back quickly, and they're open for business. And who boy, there's a lot of business they're getting. So the leaves look like they'll probably be peaking there within, the next week or two. There wasn't a ton of color, but given the amount of rain that they just got, that kind of puts a damper on it. But really enjoyed ourselves and had a great weekend. So, by the way, if you have had experience with those fire mats, those 4-layer fire mats, particularly where it concerns a fire pit, using it with a fire pit, because ours doesn't have legs on it, it's just going to have to sit directly on the fire mat. And I'm hoping that that's going to be enough to be able to protect the grass underneath it. I guess for the safety's sake, I'll let a corner of my yard be a guinea pig on that, and I'm going to give it a try on that mat here, so that if I burn any grass, it won't be in a natural spot. It'll be in our backyard, and I can kind of reseed that and take care of it and pay the price for it. But I don't want to do that in some place where you really don't want a burn ring on it. But if you've used one of those and had good experience with it, let me know. My email address is ken@dirtroadtourist.com, and hopefully that's gonna do what I want it to do. So that's about all I got for this week. I just wanted to talk about the trip that we had, and looking forward to our next one. Man, the campfire therapy is great. One of the things I love about being able to get out on these quick trips is it's just an opportunity to sit, have a couple of glasses of whiskey while you've got a nice fire pit fire going, and you can kind of shut down the brain there and think all you got to think about is it time to put another log on the fire, and then I can climb up into the rooftop tent and sleep like the dead until the next morning and not have my mind racing or thinking about, this thing at work tomorrow or something with the podcast or something else. And, get up and have my computer right there. Sometimes I'll wake up here and come into the office and flip on the computer and be doing something because I happen to be thinking about it in a moment. I won't think about anything when I'm out there camping. So, that's what makes it such a really good mental reset and come back feeling charged and ready for the week ahead. But anyway, if you have any questions, comments, or anything to say specifically about that fire mat, I'd love to hear from you. Again, that email address is ken@dirtroadtourist.com. That's ken@dirtroadtourist. And like I said before, you can find us on all the socials. We are Dirt Road Tourist on Instagram and Dirt Road Tourist on Facebook. So look us up and come visit us and check us out. And I'd love to see you online. Anyway, that's about all I've got for this episode. Until next week, have a great week and go see something amazing.